childhood. All right, and what we're talking about today is basically like my childhood and how my childhood has helped make me the individual that uh, that I am. I want to first um, talk to everyone out there about my childhood and give everybody like an update on my childhood. You know, I grew up in parts of Georgia, and it was an okay childhood. You know, it was okay at the points in my life early on, and then we ended up moving to North Carolina. And when we moved to North Carolina, you know, it was more like it was okay. It wasn't too bad, and we just wasn't the kids that had got the most. You know, and as kids, you know, you always want to make sure like you're getting the most out of life, that you're actually happy, and that um, you're just satisfied. You know, and today, when it comes down to my childhood, you know, and I think it's important that I really discuss it and talk about it on this live recording today, and to all my friends and listeners across the globe that might be listening on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and wherever else. I'm just talking about my childhood, and I think that's important to talk about because, you know, when you're growing up, you're trying to really, you know, distinguish yourself, make yourself, right? And as kids, we had dreams, we have goals and ambitions. We really want to make things happen, want to see our dreams come true. And in order for those things to happen, you have to have a childhood, you have to go through some things, you have to see some things, you have to see some people. And first thing that I want to talk about is this thing called rich parent, poor parent. So, rich parent, poor parent. When I talk about rich parent, I'm talking about the parent who has everything, right? Who has all this money to basically make their kids' lives a lot better, make their kids' dreams come true, send their kids to camp, send their kids to vacation, send their kids all over the globe. And then I want to talk about the poor parent. You know, and I want to say that I came from, if it makes sense, you know, the poor parent, all right, because we didn't grow up with a lot, me and my sisters. We grew up with just basically the necessities that I would say that you would need to live life, right? The necessities to go out here and basically survive, right? So we didn't always get all the things that we wanted. You know, there was times when Christmas came, real talk, you know, we had a church pastor and his wife buy us our Christmas, you know, because my parents couldn't afford it and things of that nature. And you might be saying, well, why are you talking about this in a podcast? And I want to talk about it because it's real life. A lot of people don't really understand that in life, you know, things happen. You grow up, and what you see, the finished product, you know, as being a podcaster, somebody who really is, you know, on the scene, doing things, you know, being a part of, being on iHeartRadio, having podcasts on iHeartRadio, having podcasts on Spotify, you know, having podcasts on different things. You know, you wouldn't think that this guy, which is myself, was a grew up poor, you know, or middle class, as they say, or from the bottom, now we're here, you know, started from the bottom, now we're here, you know, but we didn't grow up like that. So, we grew up different. So, another thing is, how did my childhood make me, right? How did it make me a better person? So, I want to talk too about window shopping. So, we were those kids that would go to the mall, you know, down in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and window shop, basically. You know, we didn't have the money to buy $400-$500 worth of clothes. You know, my parents just didn't have the money when we were coming up. So we basically would go to the mall, we'll window shop. You'll see a pair of Nikes you like, a pair of Jordans you like, and, you know, basically you'll say, oh, that's my shoes, or You know, that's my shirt, or that's my clothes, or, you know, things of that nature. You know, 'cause we had basically the drive to have those things, have nice stuff. And at the time, our parents just weren't making the money, you know, and they were doing the best they can. They weren't bad parents. You know, they were just parents who did what they felt was necessary for us so that we could have those things. And I'm not bitter about it. It made me a lot better today, probably than I, you know, would have been if I was just that kid that just got everything that I wanted. You feel me? So my childhood is what really made me in thriving. So like me, I'm a go-getter. You know, I don't blame my parents for things they didn't do when I was a kid. You know, I've always just went with the flow, if it makes sense. I just kind of just went with it. I kind of just did my thing. And then another thing is, so like I played sports. So I was a football player. I wrestled while I was in high school. And my parents, they weren't always there for every football game and wrestling matches while I was in high school. They just wasn't, you know. And how did that make me as an individual? When I was at a football game or I was at my wrestling meet, I was just kind of there, you know what I'm saying? I really wasn't focused more so on like if my parents were there. I was just there. I mean, we had our fans, so I mean, more so it was like my fans were just the people that came. So I mean, I didn't really have that. I didn't have what most kids had, where their parents were there at every game. You know, if the kids needed new clothes, new shoes for games or for meets, man, I wasn't that kid. You know, it was like if I had maybe one pair of cleats, one pair of wrestling shoes, and that was it. You know, some kids had like, cleats for like playoffs, cleats for championships, you know, and then wrestling matches were like big because we would go to tournaments, you know, and in tournaments, you know, at tournaments, you wrestle, you know, in the bracket, right? So you're wrestling one side of the bracket, you make it to like the semifinals, and then boom, you had them championships. You know, most people come out in championships, you have a whole different singlet, you come out in whatever shoes you had, you know, you were dressed up. Well, I didn't have all that. So as a child coming up, you know, from being a teenager to being a young adult, it really changed a lot of my outlook on stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because as a child, you're thinking like, I'm supposed to have everything, my parents are always supposed to be here to support me, and my life just didn't go that way. You know, my life went differently, it went in a different direction. And it really molded me for now, you know, as I move it to, well, I'm in adulthood, but as I start getting older, you know what I'm saying? So that to me is a big thing, you know. And then we had this thing called no new clothes, right? So we didn't go to, you know, when school started, everybody kind of went shopping before, you know, everybody had that pre-shop, you know, because that was the thing to do. You're taught, you know, coming up that if you don't get new clothes and new shoes and all that other stuff, you basically was like a poor person, you know what I'm saying? So me growing up, me and my sisters, we just went with what we had, you know what I'm saying? And then the crazy part is like, we didn't even have the best, but to us it was the best. You know, I might have one or two good pair of pants, and then that's how it went. You know what I'm saying? My sisters had what they had, and we made those clothes work so that, you know, we could go to school, you know, and then we just went with it. But it's crazy. Kids was really upset at us, talking about us, and we didn't even have the latest fashions. You would have thought like we were talked about because we had the latest fashions. We were talked about because we were stunting. No, we were talked about because like, yo, you ain't got the hot shoes on your feet, you know, or the hot t-shirt on. And that happens, you know what I'm saying? That happens. And I don't know, maybe I didn't have emotions, right? Really, I don't think I had a lot of emotions at the time, you know, being a young kid. It was like, more so like, hey, my parents doing the best they can, we ain't got it, hell, we ain't got it, you know. And then you will see the other kids come in with all this stuff on. And I remember, you know, getting older, and I told my parents, I'm like, man, I wish I lived over there with such and such, or I wish I lived, you know, in this area, that area. And my dad always, he said it the best, you know, well, go live with them, you know what I'm saying? You don't know what they go through to get that stuff. You know, and at the time of me being young, you know, in my childhood, I'm thinking like, yo, You don't know what you're talking about. Like, yo, they got the fashion, that's what I want. You know, and years later, you know, as we started getting up into high school and really get close to that graduation time, and you really learn a lot about who had what and who didn't really have, you know. So they have family members buying for them or whatever the case may be. And I'm not no hater, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm going to talk go right here real quick. So when I was in high school, I grew up with my uncle and his wife, you know. And my mom always told me, nobody's going to love you like your parents do. They're not going to put up with the things your parents put up with and all of that good stuff. You know what I'm saying? So when I lived with them, and I'm going to talk about that too right here. I think that's important. So when I lived with my uncle and his wife, you know what I'm saying? I went over there. I lived with them. I mean, when you know, I had like maybe when I moved out of my parents' house, and this is about my 9th grade year in high school. You know, 9th grade year, I moved out. My uncle and them took me in, whatnot. And that was cool. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff was cool. So here I am. They took me in or whatever because, you know, just whoop stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? And I just probably needed to get out of the environment, maybe. I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't because I probably did. But at the same time, it was just one of the things where it was like, yo, you need to make a change. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, boom, let's go. It was around Christmas time. So I moved with my uncle and my aunts, you know, and this is my childhood. So this podcast is basically my childhood made me, you know, who I am today. So I moved with them. I basically was starting to become that kid like other kids, you know, had the fashion, had the shoes, you know, Nikes, Adidas, you know, I'm rocking, right? And when the person, if you ask me how I felt then, I probably felt, and I'm going to keep it real on this live podcast, I wasn't as happy because I had everything, but I didn't have my parents, if it makes sense. You know, when you grow up as a kid, the biggest people you need in your life is your parents. You know, people can say whatever they want to say, but anyway, long story short, I lived with them for my 9th, my 10th grade. So I'm going to talk about my life living with my aunt and my uncle. This story I never really shared with people like that. So when I lived with my uncle and my aunt, you know, it was like night and day. Because my aunt was nice, my uncle was nice. They both had nice sides to them. But, excuse me. But when it seemed like when they were around each other and I was around, sometimes it got really heated. Like it would, you know, they would become mean. You know what I'm saying? And when I was growing up, just real quick, my uncle was my favorite uncle at the time. You know what I'm saying? Because when I was a youngster, a little kid, my uncle used to really, you know, was my role model. If it makes sense. My dad was in the picture, my mom was in the picture. But as a young kid, my uncle was like my go-to. That was my guy. But as I got older, he got married, things changed, and then I kind of looked at my uncle like, dang, yo, like, I thought this was my favorite uncle. I thought I'm supposed to be your favorite nephew, things of that nature. So back to my story. So I'm in high school. I'm living with my uncle. And I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied. Like, shoes didn't make me happy. Clothes didn't make me happy. Like, I always worried about my sisters because that's what we had. You know, in middle school, that's what we had. You know, we looked out for one another. Truthfully, that's all we had. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people didn't know what we were going through because that's the part of life, right? That's the part of your childhood. You don't tell everybody what you're going through, what you got going. You just kind of start living life. You just go with the flow. So basically, I'm with my uncle and them, I'm playing football, I'm wrestling, and I just wasn't happy. I just wasn't being me. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't being who I really wanted to be. You know, it was like I changed up. You know what I'm saying? And that's just because of being young, being dumb, not understanding that, hey, if you're gonna be yourself, be yourself. So I went and I lived with them, and things just wasn't what I thought it would be, you know what I'm saying? Because again, my parents weren't there. You know, some stuff I'm gonna share with y'all in this live is like when I was living with them, and I was told like my parents didn't love me and stuff like that, right? And A lot of people don't know that, you know what I'm saying? Because like I never shared this, but now on my live podcast, this is why I started it, because I like to talk about real life stuff, right? So I keep it 100. So basically, they were like, your parents don't love you, your parents love you, you wouldn't be living with us. It was so much stuff going on, man. It was really so much, and I don't hate them. Really, I don't, man. And like, if they would listen to this podcast and got bitter about it or upset about it, like that's them. You know what I'm saying? That's their life. That's how they feel. Hey, more power to you, much love for you. But I eventually, one night I was laying in my bed when I was living with my uncle and them. And I remember my aunt, she told me like, I had this feeling like something telling me you want to go home. And I kind of brushed it off like, nah, I'm good. In reality, yeah, I wanted to go home. Yeah, I want to go back and live with my parents. Yeah, I want to go back to the bullshitty environment. Yeah, I wanted all of that. That's what I wanted, right? So, again, this is a story on my childhood and how my childhood made me a better person and made me, become the guy I am today. So anyways, I was like, yeah, I'm laying in the bed that night, living with my uncle and my aunt, and the first thing that came to my mind was like, yeah, I'm ready to bounce. I want to go home. But again, mind you, when I was living at my parents' house, I didn't have the shoes that I had. I didn't have the clothes that I had. I just didn't have the stuff that they had over there at my house. You know what I'm saying? So when I got up that night, I remember walking to the living room like yesterday. And my uncle, I think he was in college, I think, getting his doctorate or whatnot. So I was like, this is my opportunity to get up and move back home. You know what I'm saying? So I got up, and then before all of this, it was a school called Southview High School. And my uncle was like, yo, you're not going to make a Southview High School football team. You're not good enough and all of this good stuff. And I'm going to get to that point and talk about that too. But after this little story right here. So basically I got up, and I thought about it too. Long and hard, I'm walking through the hallway in the dark. Like, yo, I'm about to make this decision. I don't know if it's a good decision. I don't know if it's a bad decision, but I'm going to go back and live with my parents or whatever. So I got up and I told my aunt, I was like, hey, aunt, I want to go back home. And she was like, all right, cool. My aunt, she was like, all right, cool. It is what it is, you know what I'm saying? So she was like, I'll talk to your uncle, boom, 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 tell him in the morning. So I remember I got up that morning, and again, this is about my childhood. When I talk with everything that I'm talking about in this video, for real, I want y'all to understand it's no bitterness, it's nothing, no harm, no foul, it's not me putting people on blast, none of that. It's just basically me talking about how my childhood made me a better guy. So anyway, that morning came, and my uncle was like, you want to move back home, you can move back home with the clothes you came with, leave all these clothes and these shoes here. And I was like that. Like, I went to school that day, and that was my last day in school. And he was like, basically that whole thing, like, yo, you ain't come over here with nothing, you're going to basically leave with nothing. And that was like, I bet, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, that it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, this is what it is. Boom. All right, so take your loss. I wasn't mad. So basically, I went to school that day. I don't remember if I told anybody I was leaving or if it was my last. I don't know. But anyway, I ended up moving back with my parents. So, and I took my uncle and them let me take the clothes and stuff that I had that they had bought me, and they were like, hey, you can take it. I was like, all right, cool. If they didn't let me take it, it would have been all right still, because at the end of the day, like, I come from the poor, so what more can I go back to? You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody. So, anyways, I went back with my parents. I went to Southview Senior High School. So, remember earlier on in the story, I told y'all that my uncle was like, basically, you ain't gonna make a Southview football team. You're not good enough, and all of these good things. So, I was like, bet. So I went there, and at that time, I remembered that. So I'm out there, the summer. I'm like, yo, am I really, I started questioning things, because that's how we do as youngsters, you know what I'm saying? Young kids, somebody tell you ain't good enough. You like, I ain't good enough, you know what I'm saying? Or you might feel like, hey, I'm good enough, but maybe, I'm good enough for, just maybe, just a tryout, and then I'm going to go home because I'm going to get cut or whatever. Because I mind you guys, I did get cut in middle school from football. I got cut in high school my freshman year from football. One was at, my first cut ever in my life was at John Griffith Middle School, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Jack Britt High School, Fayetteville, North Carolina. So I got cut my freshman year, my 7th grade year, my 8th grade year, I was academically eligible. So all of these things going on in this young guy's life, which is mine. So I go to Southview High School. I try out for the team. So while I'm trying out, and then the way the summers were, you would go out there basically and you kind of conditioned on your own. They had a little piece of paper, they tell you kind of look at it, boom, you let them know, hey, I'm here, boom, and they had this piece of paper to tell you what you need to be doing. So if you're going to be running hundreds, you're going to be running 20s, you're going to be sprinting, whatever you're going to do, you're going to do until tryouts start. So you go out there, you kind of just condition around a little bit, from like 8 to like 10, I think, 8, 10, 10, 30. You'll leave that, and then you'll return back tomorrow, do the same thing. So when tryouts came, we had, I think, between like maybe 300 to 400 kids. Like, I don't remember. There was so many people out there. So many people. And I remember like going out there, and I was like, yo, I had this thing in my mind that, yo, my uncle said I can't make this team, I'm not good enough. So I ended up trying out anyway. So I was like, yo, if I don't make it, no harm, no foul, like nobody can talk, no noise to me. I'm just gonna go out here, I'm gonna rock steady like I always do. And I'm gonna live with the decisions that happen. So I went out there, we had a cut. I think our first cut was like a conditioning cut. I was a shit. I was like, so I'm running, good. I blow that out the water, because I'm like, it's not but a bunch of running. We were doing like hundreds. We were running like 100 yards, on the football field. Every football field's 100 yards, so you run from one end zone to the other end zone. And you got to keep up. So they split up offense, defense. So I was with defense, we were running. It was people that were faster than me, people slower than me, people, whatever. So I made that cut. Then we had a hit day cut, as I call it, hit day. So anyways, again, it was a lot of kids out there. The numbers were still too high. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, yo, okay, I'm just gonna go out here and I'm just gonna kind of like do what I gotta do, and hopefully I make the team. But if I don't, again, I had that mindset that, hey, I was told I wasn't good enough. So if I get cut again, what's that? No harm, no foul. Anyways, we had a hit day cut. So like all these people got cut. Boom. Sham of people. So they were like, yo, come back in the evening. This what they told the whole team. Like, come back in the evening around like 1 o'clock. Because we got out of tryouts at like at 11:30, 12 o'clock. So you come back about 1:30. That's when the cut list is up. Like, who gonna make the team? So if your name on the list, basically you look and you'll bring your butt back the next day. So I got to the point where I was like, yo, I'm not gonna make this team because, again, as a child, you think, and as a youngster, you think like somebody told you ain't gonna make it. You like, no harm, no foul. I don't give a doggone if I make the team. Even though in reality, you're like, I really want to make this. I really want to succeed. I think I'm good enough. Like, let me have a chance. You know what I'm saying? Let me get my work. So I end up not going to check the roster, right? So I had a friend. I forgot his name, but he was a Caucasian white dude. You know what I'm saying? He was like, yo, he was a senior. I was like a junior. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yo, do you see my name on the list? Because again, I was like, I've been cut before, so, and it's not a good thing. Let's get that out of the way. It's not a good thing when you get cut, because you like, yo, I'm like, it kind of hurts you at your pride a little bit. I'll say that hurts your pride because you like, damn, my name ain't on the list. So I asked my boy, I called him on the phone. He was like, yo, you report back tomorrow. So I'm like, ooh, I'm making it. Okay, cool, bet. So anyway, I go up there. I'm at Southview Senior High School. It's a good, good football team, right? So I'm like, yo, okay, I might got a chance. It's my last opportunity. I got a chance because we got one more cut. And I think we had like maybe 5 to 10 guys that they had to get rid of. Because I remember the late coach Randy Leffer, who was the football coach, the head coach of Southview Tigers, was like, we got a couple more people to cut. So I'm like, doggone. You know what I'm saying? Like, bam, man, when is this ride of cuts gonna be over? So anyway, he was like, he said that whole thing. So I'm like, man, doggone. So we had one more cut. That cut was the same day. So it was like more like evaluation cuts, if it makes sense. So basically, like, you had to basically not be strong. You had, like, we were out and doing drills, right? We was out there like hitting. Like, we out there hitting, we out there doing different things. And I played D-line. I probably was like a small D-line. You know, everybody was like bigger than me. So I'm like, yo, I might not have a chance because everybody's so bigger than me. And I'm out here, I'm holding my ground, I'm holding my own. But you know, I thought about all the times I've been cut. And that's how life do you. Life kind of throw you back into like everywhere you've been. It's like a movie, right? So I remember being at Southview on the field, and like we were on a water break. And then I had this vision of like everything in my life happening, right? So like me getting cut my freshman year, me getting cut in middle school, me getting cut again my freshman year, and then being told like, yo, you're not good enough to make this team, and all of this stuff. So all of these things like a movie plays in your mind, right? So I remember like yesterday, like feeling some type of way, right? So I was like, dang, yo, like I'm not gonna make this team, and it just ain't gonna go for me, right? So I ended up making a Southview football team. And I was happy and I was okay with that. And I was like, yo, like, dang, yo, I wasn't gonna make the team, I made the team. And like, I was humble. Let me put that out. I was humble. I didn't go and brag, I didn't go and be like, yo, you said, I didn't do that, right? I made the team and I just went on about my way. I got maybe like a little bit of playing time, not too much. So I went mad. I was a junior, had a lot of seniors in front of me. And I was like, okay, cool, you know, because I'm on the team. So then after all of that stuff, there was like, you know, when you go back to school, because when you go back to school, everybody talks about vacations, right? Hey, I was on vacation. Yo, I went here, I went there. And real talk, I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all real quick. We didn't go on vacation. Me and my sisters, we didn't go on vacation, right? So, you know, I remember telling my sisters, I was like, yeah, we're gonna lie about we went here. So I remember I was in my class, and they were like, where did everybody go on vacation? And I used to hate that part of school. In the beginning, was like, where did you go on vacation? Because we never went. So I was like, yo, I stayed at home all summer. Like I had all intentions of going that line, like, yo, I went to Myrtle Beach, I went here. Because my family, like my mom's side of the family, because that's what we lived by in Fayetteville, North Carolina, was like always taking trips, you know what I'm saying? They all had the money to go on trips, and we just were kind of just those kids that were like, you stay home, and nobody's gonna think about you. So anyway, our vacation was at home, you know, like we joked around and was like, yeah, our going to the beach was like, the closest thing going to the beach was like maybe a pool or getting into the bathtub. That was the closest thing to the beach or vacation, right? And then us walking around our neighborhood was like traveling, right? So we just kind of did our thing, really. So anyways, we had incidents as me and my sisters grew up too with family, right? So like my mom's family, because that's who we live by. My dad's family was up in Chicago. You know, they kind of talked to us here and there. But anyway, you know, we had issues with our family, the ones we live by. So my sister and I was like the talk of the family, right? We were like the disrespectful kids. We were the kids who didn't have nothing. We were the kids who basically less fortunes. We got hand-me-downs. Yes, we got hand-me-downs. And I was okay with getting hand-me-downs because some of the hand-me-downs were like some decent stuff. And I'm like, yo, I ain't got no J's on my feet. I ain't got no Nikes on my feet. I got these Walmart starters on. Go ahead and pass me them shoes. You know what I'm saying? So, like, when we got those, it was like, yo, like, I got some straight shoes on my feet. Even though at the end of the day, we didn't know how much it was worth, and we didn't care. It was like, yo, we got some shoes on our feet. So eventually, we started becoming the kids like, hey, we got some starter shoes on. Before we got all the, you know, we were getting hand-me-down. We were like, yo, these are the best shoes going right now. You know what I'm saying? So, if somebody talked about us at school, we cared less. It was so much, like, we could care less. We were just happy that we had clothes on our back, shoes on our feet, and, you know, sometimes we had food on the table when we got home. Real talk. This real talk. So, anyways, those things happen. You know, we was not like the favorite kids in the family. You know how you got like, hey, you can go to anybody's house, and they like, yo, that's my cousin. Like, we went to the house, and it was like, yo, like, don't go near them. They're gonna start trouble. They're not good. You know, it was so much stuff. You know. We really didn't, we didn't have the vibe like with the family like a lot of families have, because it just wasn't like that, you know, for whatever reason, it wasn't like that. So I'm not mad, no foul, no harm, whatever, cool, you know what I'm saying? So like me being me, and I'm talking about my childhood made me better, and successful, it can make you out there who might not be the rich kid, right? Because as I stated in my beginning, I talked about the rich parent and the poor parent, right? So everybody got some type of parent, whether they rich, whether they poor, whether they getting rich by living off somebody, whether they get, all these things going on, right? Whether your parents can afford stuff because they with somebody who had money or whatever the case may be, right? So we wasn't that type of kid. Our parents had their issues. It was like any other marriage. They had their issues, and we just kind of kept on trucking, right? We kept on trucking. So as all of that stuff started happening, we took the hand-me-down. We took the hand-me-down. We took the being talked about. We took, going to school and not being, the favorite kid. You know what I'm saying? We held what we could down. You know what I'm saying? We held each other down. That's how me and my sisters, we went about it, and I think that's important because a lot of people think because, oh, you on iHeartRadio, oh, you on Spotify, like, oh, you making money, you rich, you this, you that. And it's like, hold up. Like, no, I came from an era in an area that wasn't too good for me, right? And I made decisions in my mind at a young age that I was not going to live in that, if it makes sense. Like, I was not going to be, like, we were, like, as young kids, truthfully, and I'm going to talk about this too, we was evicted. I can say that. We was evicted as young kids. Like, we was evicted. Our parents got evicted from the house. Like, we seen that stuff. We went through cars being repossessed. We went through that as young kids. We seen that, right? So as we started seeing things being taken in life, we started dissecting, like, how does that happen, right? So we learned early, you got to pay bills. You got to do this. You got to do that. So we made, in our mind, and I'm going to talk about me, I made in my mind to never be evicted. I made in my mind to never have a car repossessed, right? And I made in my mind to want to, pay my bills as long as I can work. So as I became on my own, and things like that. Like, I went to college, I was a college kid. I did all that stuff, right? I went to the military. But, again, a lot of that stuff, right? Life as a youngster prepared me for life as a grown-up. Because, one, you're going to get hurt by people. People are going to talk junk about you. People not going to like you. People going to hurt you. The people you love the most going to hurt you. The people you think ain't going to hurt you going to be the ones that hurt you. It's just so much, right? So me being, going through what I went through in my life as a young kid and everything, how did, when you think of that, you would think like, hey, this kid's going to be the kid that's going to, go to prison or something, right? Because even when you in high school, y'all do that homecoming queen, homecoming king. Who's the smartest? Who's more likely to be the CEO? Who's more likely to be this? And it's not, and we always pick the kid who's loud and the kid we feel is like very popular, right? That's who we pick. We be like, they popular, bam, they gonna be the ones, right? But it don't work that way. It don't always work that way. Truthfully, in real talk, it don't work that way. Sometimes it's the kids that don't have nothing. The hand-me-downs, like the kid that had hand-me-downs, the kid that don't have new shoes, the kid that don't go school shopping, hell, the kid that barely come to school with a book bag, pen, paper because their parents can't afford it. Those might be the ones that might, up and surprise everybody. And I say that because, and I don't say that lightly. I say that like wholeheartedly, and I say that because everybody got choices. Like, life is a bunch of choices. Life is about who's gonna survive, who's gonna fold, right? So my parents didn't give me everything, as I stated early on. My parents didn't give me everything. I had to work for it. I had to hustle for it. And then sometimes it would just hand me down. So when I basically decided in my mind, like, I'm not going to be like that, what I'm saying? I didn't care about being no class clown. I didn't care about being most popular. I didn't care about what you thought about me. Like, I was like, yo, I'm going to hit the ground running. Once I graduate, boom, I'm about to fly, right? So, like, I started making sure that I started really, really taking care of myself, right? I started doing things I felt was necessary, right? So that I could put myself in great positions, right? I made sure that, if, I was outside or with my homeboys, that I wasn't making mistakes that would land me inside of a jail or a prison cell. Like, that's how on eggshells I was, right? I was making sure, like, I was in the house before 10, 11 o'clock at night, like, no sneaking out the house. That I was that kid, right? Because I just knew, like, that wasn't good. Kids that were doing that, and get killed, or, you was just outside doing something you ain't had no business doing, you know what I'm saying, or making babies, right? Because that's what everybody was doing. You were in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where I was at. When I, as I was growing up, man, I was seeing people have kids like crazy, young kids, 14, 15, and I'm just like, yo, I love my money, and I ain't had no money, right? So I was like, I love my money, I don't want to be, spend my money on no kid at the time, so I just basically kind of stuck to myself, and I had my friends, and I kind of just did my own thing, right? I made sure that I kind of had a little profile, because that's just what I wanted, you know what I'm saying? And I seen kids that grew up sheltered, man, like strung out on drugs, like dope fiends, like all types of stuff, or in prostitution, like all types of mess, because like life really, hit them. My parents didn't really hide nothing from us in life. Like, hell, if the rent wasn't paid, we knew about it. Like, that's how life was. My parents, if they didn't have gas money to get back and forth to work, like, we knew about it. That's the life I grew up. My childhood made me who I am today. Like, for real, man. I know when I see young kids out here and I see, like, man, their parents really struggling. I know that feeling. I was in that as a youngster. You know what I'm saying? I seen that stuff. And when I see people out here killing each other because, like, my parents didn't buy me the name brand shoes, or my parents ain't like the Smiths down the road, keeping up with the Joneses. My parents didn't do that. I know parents who done it and they lost everything. I know parents today who do it, and it's like, it's atrocious, because now your kids doing it, and now they losing everything. So we didn't grow up like that. We didn't have nobody to keep up with. Hell, we were just trying to keep our head above water. You know what I'm saying? So a question that really came up, as I started getting older, because I would tell people basically how I grew up. I didn't tell them everything, but I kind of just threw some little things out there, like, yo, I know what it is sometimes to just go to school so you can get a meal to eat. I know what it is to walk home 2 hours from school from driver's ed because your parents wasn't at the house to pick you up. Or one of my parents was at the house and they just didn't come get me, because other people were more important. So I know how that feels, right? But I didn't let that deter me from being a great citizen. I didn't let that deter me from being a great podcaster. I didn't let that deter me from being who I wanted to be. And that's real talk, And a lot of people, either I served in the military with you, I work with you, whatever. A lot of people don't really know the true me. They know of me, but they don't know the true me, right? Because I don't just sit there and just blur everything out. When I get money, real talk, when I get money, I try to hold on to every dollar, right? So, like, if I get paid from doing a job, I hold on to a dollar, and I spread a little bit of the money out when I can, because that's how I grew up. I know the importance of a dollar. And some people, they get money, man, and they got to flash it. And like, I get money, I put that in my account, and it's there. You know what I'm saying? So when I work or whatever, get paid for my podcast or whatever the case may be, it's like, I'm going to make sure I pay me, and I'm going to make sure I do for others. You know what I'm saying? If I got it, you got it. That's my mentality. But I'm no fool. You know what I'm saying? Because you got some people out here, man, as soon as they get $1, a crackhead can come after them for that same dollar and then give it away like I'm not that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that. So a question, I'm about to talk about this question right here. So like, throughout everything, somebody asked me this question: how does a kid who didn't have much become successful? Like, a kid who didn't have much become successful. And it was basically this. I became successful first off because, one, my trust in Jesus. That's who I believe in, right? So I believe in Jesus. I believe the whole Trinity thing, right? And I pray to God about a lot of different things, right? And being successful was like my biggest prayer, right? Being that guy who didn't have kids at the age of 18, being that kid who didn't just have a bunch of kids running, because I never wanted to put a kid in a situation to like live with their mom, and then I'm over here doing my thing, and then it's like I don't have enough time with that kid. And I felt like the reason why is because when I seen it growing up, it really did something to me, because I'm like, yeah, that ain't how you be no kid, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, shit, I got both parents in the house, and they doing the best they can. They don't have the most money in the world, right? And I knew I just didn't want to bring no kid into no situation. I didn't want to put no woman in that situation because one, every guy, and I'm going to just say this too, like every guy, they call women the B word, hoe, whatever, tricks, whatever. But it's like you gotta respect women. You know what I'm saying? Like, because everybody in the world has something that they got to give to the world. You know what I'm saying? Whether that's like you call a woman to be a hoe, but then that be the same one that had your kid, like, homeboys looking at you like, what? You know what I'm saying? None of the homeboys I had or work or walk around the world with today have any kids that they don't take care of, because one, we all real dudes. We gonna take care of our kids. You know what I'm saying? If we got the money, the kids got the money. Whether we live in the same household with the woman or not, that's just how we rock and that's how we roll. You know what I'm saying? There's people that they're against that. They don't like. I gotta be in the same house. I gotta man. We passed that because we bigger than that, right? So anyway, how did I become successful? I put my mind to it, and I just jumped out there and I started making moves, right? Because one, I'm just going to talk about my jobs real quick. So my first big major job was working as a correctional officer, working in a prison. And at some point as a young kid, somebody told me, because I used to get in a lot of trouble, that I was going to end up in a prison cell, right? And I was like, I don't want that for my life, you know what I'm saying? Because being a youngster, I didn't know at the time, being the bad boy, that you would think those things could happen. So I never experienced prison as an inmate or a prisoner. I experienced prison as a correction officer, somebody who worked in there, basically do my hours, and I go to the crib, not being locked up, chained up, or whatever the case may be. So when I worked in there, it kind of gave me that outlook on life, like, man, people make mistakes and they should get a second chance, right? And then you got people who make mistakes, man, and it's like, yeah, they need to be there. Don't ever let them out because they're a danger to society. And I left that job because people were it was a stressful job, and being young like I was, I think I was 21 or 22, people would die, have a heart attacks, you know what I'm saying, at home, in their bed. And I was like, I can't have it. I can't, right? So I end up, and then one time while I working, I got assaulted by an inmate for like no reason, you know what I'm saying? Like, I worked up in a lockup unit in North Carolina, like the Hymax prison, and then like an inmate took a window, I hit him in the head with it, and I had stitches in my head. Like, I knew that was my time to like ride up out of there, because when it started getting dangerous, and then I just started seeing the politics of the game, of the prison system, and I was like, y'all can have politics, because politics is what get the people that work there killed, not the ones who are living in the prison, right? So I got out of there, I went to the military. When I went to the military, it wasn't too bad, right? At the beginning, I was at basic training, I met some good people, I went to AIT, which is basically where you learn your job, and then I went to my first duty station. Well, the first two basic AIT were like smooth rides. Like, I had one sergeant that I just didn't get along with in AIT. And that's because, just human nature. People not gonna always like you. People don't like you for whatever reason. They ain't gotta have a reason. That's just how life works. So I was in the Army. I was like, I'm about to make this a career. I'm about to do 20 years. Like, this is what I was saying in basic AIT, because that's how easy it is, right? So I got my duty station. I met some great people, but I just couldn't do it, right? So I served about almost 6 years in the military, a total, right? But I got out before my 6th year. And I got out because of different things. Again, politics, and then like the whole disrespect, and then it's like people just treat you how they want to treat you. And I just wasn't for that, I just wasn't used to that. And I remember my childhood is what made me better, right? My childhood made me better. So I realized, like, I got to get up off of that. I got to get up out of there. I have to make choices that are going to help me become better. And I remember being in the Army, something happened. I got demoted for no reason. Like, it's like I was at court, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, my commander basically was like, demoting you. Like, he had no proof and nothing. I got demoted. So I felt like that guy who was in prison for no reason, and I was like, it's time for me to get up out of here. I need to be a podcast, because I like to talk. And I think that people need to really talk about real life stuff and stop talking about stuff that means absolutely nothing, because that's the way I feel. And I'm entitled to my own opinion. So if people look at me wrong, that's on them. More power to you, and you still can subscribe and follow me on all my platforms. But anyway, I still became successful. And I became successful because everything I went through as a youngster, all the pain and hurt and sufferings and things of that nature had really prepared me for like when all of these other things in my life happened, being treated like nothing by people that, claim to love me and stuff like that, being an outcast and all of these big things, big things that we go through in life. So I became successful because I didn't let those things nor those people block things that I want to do in my life. Like, yeah, you might say something about me. It's cool. If you don't like me, okay, cool. You didn't like me 20 years ago. You're not going to like me 20 years later. So, like, that was my mentality, right? And it was like, I have nothing to prove. I wasn't out there to prove nothing to nobody. And I think that's what a lot of people are. They do. They try to prove stuff to people. And I was like, I'm not going to be that person that's got to prove anything. Like, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to do whatever I feel. And one thing that I want to say on my live podcast is that I am happy for all my listeners. I'm happy for all my followers and everyone that subscribes to me, because one thing that is for sure is like a guy who grew up poor, who didn't have a lot, you know what I'm saying, is like someone you want to listen to in the morning or on your way to work or on your way to just chilling in the house. Because we all come from some type of background, and all of our backgrounds are different, you know what I'm saying? So it's not what you have, like success. Let me just talk about that. It's not about what you have. Like, you can come up in a home where you got both parents. You come up in a home where you're in foster care, or you come up in a home where nobody really cared about you, right? People threw you out there, didn't care about you, or they abused you. You know what I'm saying? And you don't let that stop you. You take that and you say, okay, when I get grown, I'm never going to ever go through this. And that's what I had. When I get grown, I'm going to make sure I don't ever go through this, right? And I remember telling my parents, like, I was upset one time, and I was like, I'm making sure I move far, far away, and I'm never coming back, right? Like I used to say it all the time, like, I'm moving far, far, I'm never coming back. And I said that because of the hurt, right? I said that because I was going through things as a young kid, right? And I didn't understand how everything was going to play out in life, right? But it really, really had helped mold me, helped humble me, helped me to not make the decisions that certain people made, right? And not be bitter, because like I grew up, I was bitter at some things, right? And I learned bitterness just basically what you do is you take your hurt that you have inside and then you throw that hurt on somebody else. And you do it constantly. It's like I throw hurt, but I still have hurt. So it's like I'm gonna keep throwing hurt until I actually get myself together. I make the decision that, hey, I don't want to hurt nobody else. So that was that. So the last question or the last comment I'm gonna partake on this podcast, because the podcast is about through, is how did I feel, or how do I feel about my childhood now that I'm grown? And I think that in all honesty, like my childhood was like, it was okay, right? Because I went through things that I can actually share with people and young folks today, I've been through things that most kids, sometimes they don't come back from, they go out here, they killing people, or they end up inside of a prison cell, And when I worked in the prison system, like I seen those same kids that could have, it could have been me very well. Sitting inside of a prison cell as an inmate, doing time because of the choices I made, and a lot of times people make choices, they blame they blame their parents, they blame their aunts, they blame their uncles, they blame somebody about like why they're there. Like, I'm here because my mom and them didn't pay the bills. Like, I'm here because I didn't have food on the table, And the thing about it is we all have our own reasons on why we walk the straight line, on why we fall off course, right? But, as a kid, growing up, man, you would have thought, like, I would have been that savage kid that's like, I'm taking food, I'm stealing, I'm doing this. Because, again, growing up in a childhood when all you do is window shop, or, you know, you get talked about because you don't have, or, you know, your family is like at the bottom of the totem pole, you know what I'm saying? Or basically, at, like I said in the beginning, a rich parent, poor parent, like because you had a poor parent, you know, you're going to basically make a decision to go to prison and serve time or go to jail, you know. And something that I never could understand, you know, while I'm talking about, you know, my feelings for my childhood, I never could understand how kids could want to put their parents in positions that hurt them, because, you know, you look at your life and you say, well, you know, I'm a youngster, I don't have everything I want, I don't have everything I need, yeah, I'm making it, but I still want those things, I still want what life has to offer, right? And I can't go back to my childhood and make up for all lost time. I can't. I mean, if I tried to, it still wouldn't amount to the time that I, you know, felt, you know, that I lost as a kid, right? So all I can do is move forward. Start where I'm at, make that transition to move forward. And as I move forward, I'm starting to understand, and I'm starting to gain that I'm loving life more. Like, I've been on my first cruise last year. That was the first time. That's, you know, when I got out of the military, I went on my first cruise. Like, you know, I couldn't ask for more, you know. Then, and when I went on the cruise, I went to Cozumel, Mexico. That was my first overseas, you know, being out of the United States besides my military deployment to Iraq. But I started living life. I started going places that I didn't go as a young kid. I started seeing things that I didn't see as a young kid, and more so to enjoy it and to really understand, like, everybody don't get this opportunity in life, right? To actually visit other countries, or just to go on a cruise, or to go out of state, you know, because, you know, you're not really taught that, you know. And as a young kid, I wasn't taught that you go out of, you know, go on trips and vacations, man. I was taught, like, we didn't have the money, so we stay home, you know what I'm saying? And I really got out of that stigma, you know, because I didn't want that stigma to follow me throughout my life. I felt like if something follows me throughout my life, it's because I allowed it to follow me. And my childhood really made me. Like, it really made me who I am today. Like, there are things that I've been through in my life that I can honestly tell youngsters all around the world, whether they're little, whether they're young, whether they're in their 20s, that you have to keep pushing forward, and you have to keep going. You know, I can't live off of mom and daddy forever, right? I can't live off of what mom and daddy had going, right? I can't say I'm successful because mom and daddy are successful, or I'm not successful because mom and daddy weren't successful, right? Or I can't get a college education because, you know, mom and daddy didn't go to college, right? You have to take ownership of your life, and that's what I did, you know, when it comes to my childhood, making me the best. It was basically I took ownership of my life, and I said, well, these things are going to go in life, right? You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, you're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times. And you have to really shift your life once you go through these bad things in your life. You have to shift them into an arena that really helps you cope with it, you know. And I think, and I'm pretty sure, you know, I cope with things well. You know, it's nothing in the world that can happen to me that will make me so devastated to the point where I have to give up on life, right? I won't give up on life because all the places God has brought me from, you know. And I look at those things, and, you know, when I look at them, you know, I always tell God, thank you. And another thing that I do it works for me, and I have yet to squander, is when I get something, I always tell God, you know, make a commitment to God about something. You know, I say, like, for instance, I remember buying my first car, you know, and I remember it being like $14,000, and I made a commitment. And I'll tell you the commitment because the car is paid off. I remember I told God, I said, God, please don't let me lose this car. And that happened because growing up, I seen people losing cars. And when I purchased my first house, I prayed to God, don't let me lose this house. Please help me as long as you give me breath in my body. I will pay my bills on this, right? So basically, I went from being that young guy who seen people lose stuff to growing up to being a man to actually saying, hey, I don't want to be like that, and talking to God about like, God, please don't let me lose this. Help me. And I think that'll work for a lot of folks. And that's how I really became successful. And that's how I feel about my childhood. I don't feel like there's any regrets. I don't feel like there's anything I need to go back and change. I don't. I just don't. I mean, there are some people who do because they didn't get to, attend the prom, or they didn't get to, attend things, or they didn't get the latest fashion. Like, as I get older, I realize, it's great that my parents didn't do it for us, In my eyes, I'm grateful for it. I mean, I'm grateful for the parents I had. And I think that everyone should be grateful for the parents they had, And I'm coming to my close, and I'm going to say this, and then I'll be done. You never know who your next door neighbor is. You never know who's the kid that you're in class with, right? You don't know who these people are, right? You never know who your boss is, or who your employer is, or where they came from, right? All you know is like, hey, this is where they're at. And you don't know if they're going to be the next successful person. But I challenge everybody today, and I always challenge in most of my podcasts, that you go out here, you look at your childhood one day, just sit and think about it. And that's what I did. Sit and think about everything that you've been through and how you made it through. And then once you start thinking about how you made it through, you start realizing, like, life, I can make it through in life. Like, it doesn't take me having a $6,000 bank account for me to make it a $10,000. I mean, you can have one penny and you can make life, you can make it through life. And that's how it is, But I do want to throw this out there. You can, anybody, if you on any of these major platforms, or on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of that, follow me at FrazierChronicles. You can send me emails at podcaster@FrazierChronicles.com. Send your letter, send what you want to send, questions. You can DM me on the Instagram. You can write me anywhere, and I'm going to answer back. Make sure if you're on my YouTube that you sit and you hit that subscribe button and subscribe to that YouTube, because we upload videos up to YouTube a lot of times. And we also are on iHeartRadio, we're on Spotify, we're on Podbean, we're on other podcasting platforms, and we're just going to keep this thing going. To all my listeners, to all my followers, I want to be the first to say thank you. I want to be the first to say, keep following us, share us with your friends, because this thing is about to go global. So make sure that you follow us on all major platforms. And again, my email is podcaster@FrazierChronicles.com. And make sure you go ahead and you subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Instagram channel.